Hey folks, it's Friday, so as always we're going to go through Johan's replies to the latest dev diary for EU5, and that was all around the population system. I'll be honest, there was quite a lot of replies this week, but a lot of them covered the same things. I think this dev diary went over really well. I think most of them have, to be honest, so far, but this one especially, people seem very happy with it. There was a lot of replies that were just like, read the diary, no notes. Generally, people enjoyed it. A lot of players saying they want that Victoria 2 UI that he kind of put in there actually in the main game, and I think we will see a version of it of some kind when the game does come out. But with all that being said, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we're just going to quickly go over the answers that I picked out. Some interesting responses, and especially some clarifications over how some of this is going to work. And in the first question here, Sidious asked, is there migration between countries, or is there only internal migration? Within a market, yes. So a little bit of a clarification. In the dev diary did call out that a lot of the migration happens just within the market that that land is in. Now, we will mention later on, colonization works outside of this, and there are some other systems as well, but in general, that is how it works within the market. Now, this might sound a little bit weird to people, but I think it's more of an intended limitation to stop like the AI somehow like moving entire populations like right across the map. I think limiting it to a market is one way to keep things at least relatively stable within an area. So I can see how some people think this is a little bit strange, but I think it is more to just stop people just migrating people like right across the map, because, you know, that never happened in history at all, did it? But I see why in the game, why you wouldn't want that to just be a case that could happen. In the next question, can one nation expel minorities or increase their immigration desire? And can another nation become a free haven and get increased migration attraction from the expelled population? They do mention here a specific example with France and the Dutch Republic. So like, we want to kick out these people, and then another nation saying like, oh, we like those guys, come join us, come to our lands, we like you, come settle down here. And Johan's saying within the market, yes, but there are other ways that population will move within a country. So really just backing up the previous answer about like, it is possible to do this, but there are also other mechanics that will affect it. In the next question, the High Priest Elec himself asked, how will migration to the New World function if migration only occurs within a market? And Johan here saying there is one other system that really affects this, and they're going to talk about colonization soon. No, they're going to talk about it in August. Like, that's so far away. I mean, it's not really, is it? It's not that far away, but it's further away than I want. Colonization, as I mentioned in the last video, is one of the things I can't wait to see what they do with. But it does sound like we're going to have to wait a little bit of time for that, but it is probably going to be worth the wait, I would imagine. In the next question, Jon Snow, because he doesn't know anything, asked, will the construction of buildings be visible in time on the map like in Victoria 3? And Johan just replying that yes, you are going to be able to see it very similar to Victoria 3. So if you have seen how that works in that game, we're going to get a version of that in EU5. Next question, is there a planned mechanic for deforestation in relation to free land and population growth? Because as we saw in the dev diary, free land for people to live in was one of the major factors in your population growing. And Johan's saying, depending on map code technology, yes, they'd love to have something like this. So it does look like potentially, if you do play in a particularly forested area of the game, you might be able to cut those trees down to free up land to then get people to move into it. I would be surprised if they can't get something like this in. It would be a really interesting mechanic, especially for colonizing the New World and places. The amount of deforestation that happened in those areas, I think it would be good to try to recreate how that happened and how it assisted colonization and things like that. So hopefully we do see a version of it. If we don't, it's not the end of the world, but it would be cool if we did. Meth then asked, this looks strange. I would expect the majority of burghers to be literate, not just 13%. That was the number that was shown in the dev diary. And Johan once again reiterating here, like, this is just kind of placeholder. It's going to be much higher. He did actually clarify this further later to say it is going to be a lot higher than this. And again, just saying like, this is between the alpha and the beta internally. So a lot of the numbers here aren't balanced. They're just mainly getting some parts of the system working, and then they'll do a pass on things like this because, yeah, 13% for your burger estate, that does sound extremely low. So I would imagine it will be a lot higher once we actually get to play it. And then in the next question, this was around the Norse paganism that was shown in the dev diary as like 0.01% of Sweden, 38 population following that religion. This had been mentioned previously, saying there would be some kind of Norse, a Satru or something like that, population in the game at the start, so you would be able to live out your Norse dreams. And this question kind of relates to that, saying someone will find a way for those 38 brave people to become the majority religion of Sweden. And Johan really playing into the memes here, saying, knowing our player base, I expect to see a Norse one religion world conquest by 1355, thread eventually on the forums. I would imagine there's going to be many YouTube videos along those lines. We can probably name a few YouTubers who will definitely be doing a Norse resurrection type campaign in this game. In the next question, can you build irrigation canals or something like that to improve the land? Yes, in some locations, Johan's reply. I imagine he's saying about, lowlands and places like that. Obviously, you can't build a irrigation canal on a mountain. Wait, no, you kind of can in a way, can't you? But I think he's probably talking about only in certain locations where it makes sense. You're not going to be able to build them in the middle of the Sahara or somewhere like that. I say that, somebody will leave a comment saying there is this example from history of somebody having irrigation canals in the middle of the Sahara. But in the next question, Void Warrior, can you selectively approve religions and cultures so they aren't assimilated? And Johan's reply is yes on cultures. I would imagine this works like approved cultures or something where you can have them and then those people aren't like targeted to be converted to your main culture. Ones that you have approved for your realm. Johan does actually clarify later on that the approved other culture system is going to be a little bit like it was in Imperator Rome and a little bit like it was in EU4, but it isn't going to work exactly like either of those two systems. So again, we'll have to wait for the dev diary about how that actually does play out. But again, saying there are going to be ways to keep certain cultures from being assimilated into your main culture by the looks of it. In the next question, Jack Not Lantern asked about the research speed system and how technology and I guess literacy works into that as well. Johan just saying we're going to get a talk about that in 2024. So at some point within the next 6 months, we are going to get a talk on the literacy system, I think a little bit more, and about how research speed is actually affected by other mechanics in the game. So that is another one to look forward to in the future. In the next question, so is there no way to assimilate minority cultures into the accepted culture of an area or region rather than the country's primary culture? What if I want to assimilate Highlanders into Scots rather than into the English? Can you not do that? And Johan's reply is that yes, you can actually do that. So you don't have to necessarily assimilate people into your primary culture. You can actually select, I guess, one of the other accepted cultures and move them into that one. And the example they gave was actually a really good one. Like, you don't want to assimilate Highlanders into the English. They want to move them into the Scot. And it sounds like that is going to be able to be done. And that is awesome, rather than having to put them into your primary one. In the next question, this is all around goods discovery. They mentioned in the dev diary that when you discover tobacco, it will affect how happy people potentially are because they then know about tobacco and they're like, oh, I want to have that. And I'm going to be unhappy if you aren't able to give it to me. And this person asking, like, how does that work? Is it as soon as you find it, or is it after a certain amount of time? Does it slowly permeate across Europe or something like that? And Johan's saying there is a threshold before it grows. So I guess you kind of find that good like tobacco, and then as it gets more traded, I suppose, or just gradually as it moves along the trade routes, I suppose once it hits a threshold, people in that location then think like, oh, I would like to have this. I guess think of it a little bit on how like institutions move across the map in EU4. I wonder if it works like that. Like you find it in a certain location and then it kind of moves across the map in a heat map style. And as it kind of slowly radiates out from where you found it, people are affected over time. I think that would be a cool way for it to work rather than as they were thinking like, oh, I find it and then immediately everyone wants it. It is going to be over time. That does allow you to then build up a supply of it and things like that as well, which is cool. And then the last question I picked out was all around the promotion of people from the lower classes to the higher classes. And this person asking, oh, if they're killed off in battle, are they just replaced by promoting peasants up to those higher tiers, as that system is generally going to work? And Johan really just replying, yes, over time, that is what happens. So if you have like 900 nobles and 500 of them die in a war, those 500 will gradually get filled up as people promote into those noble positions. By the sounds of it, it doesn't really matter how they die, if they die from disease, battle, some other mechanic that allows that space to appear in that estate. People just get promoted up from the lower estates to kind of fill the gap there, depending on how well your promotion mechanic is happening at that time. And with that, that is the end of Johan's replies that I picked out. As always, I will leave a link to it in the description down below if you want to read through his answers or even just reread the dev diary itself. But some interesting answers as always. A reminder that next week they are going to be talking about the law system and giving us our first view of that, which is going to be pretty cool. But on that note, we'll leave it there for today. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new here. I'm covering EU5 up to official announcement, launch and beyond. And I also cover a lot of Crusader Kings 3 in a similar style if you do want to follow along with that as well. But we'll leave it there and I'll see you in the next one.